Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
A year ago, the Interior Department pitched a sweeping reorganization as a way to save money and streamline operations. What the evidence actually shows about how that played out is the focus of my conversation with Tim Whitehouse, Executive Director of Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility. Mr. Whitehouse, it is great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Terry. It's great to be here.
We are finding ourselves about a year out from so much of the DOGE activities at the beginning of the Trump administration that caught many people by surprise. And your organization has looked at one particular reorganization activity within the Interior Department. Interior pitched this as a way to save money and streamline operations. You've looked at some of the evidence. What have you found in terms of whether those goals were actually met?
We have found they're not met at all. The Department of Interior is a vast cabinet-level agency that manages America's natural and cultural resources and public lands. It employs about 70,000 people. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum started a massive reorganization, which he said its goal was to streamline efficiencies and save the Department of Interior money. So we wanted to know a year into this how it was going and what types of efficiencies were gained and how the agency was saving money. So we sent a Freedom of Information Act. To step back a little, Secretary Burgum had ordered approximately 5,000 administrative, information technology, and communication staff from all its constituent bureaus into the Secretary's office in order to streamline and save money. So these would be people from the National Park Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the U.S. Geological Survey. And so all these people came to the Office of Secretary from these constituent offices. The goal was to optimize and create efficiencies across the department by improving processes and elimination of redundant efforts. And we found through our FOIA that the Office of Interior had no records of saving money or building efficiencies. In fact, we found quite the opposite.
This kind of a reorganization sounds like efficiencies through providing central and shared services, admin, IT. Many agencies do that. What happened inside the Department of Interior so that the reality maybe diverged from what was promised?
So there was no plan in the Department of Interior to actually save money. This happened very haphazardly. It was not well thought out, and in our view, was designed to inflict trauma on the employees. It was part of the administration's effort to downsize. And so the work, for example, of the National Park Service and the people that do IT or communications for the National Park Service is very, very different than the United States Geological Survey or the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And throwing all these people into the Office of the Secretary, 5,000 of them, without clear goals, without clear management structure, without adequate support, created chaos and trauma among the staff. And they've largely reported publicly how difficult and inefficient this has been.
Thinking about this from the individual Interior employee perspective, did they have to move? Were they just realigned on paper? Did they get new reporting chains? What exactly was their experience?
So many people did not have to move, so they had new reporting chains. Some people did have to move. So people found themselves without managers, no one directly supervising them. People found themselves with managers that had no idea what they did for work. And people were left sort of to flounder in the Office of Secretary. And many of them have left. Thousands of people have left. This was occurring at a time when the Department of Interior was making every effort to push people out of the department. And so this was really, I think, part of that effort to create uncertainty and trauma in these employees using the cover of creating greater efficiencies.
Tim Whitehouse is Executive Director of Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility. Mr. Whitehouse, we're looking primarily at cost here, but efficiency is a key piece as well. Do you have any data? Have you been able to collect any data on how well these important functions were operated during this reorganization?
Yeah, so the Department of Interior set no goals for efficiency. It has no public facing things that it stated it wanted to achieve other than broadly speaking efficiencies. And so by every measure that we've been able to gather, and that's largely anecdotal, it's created quite the opposite. So we know, for example, in the National Park Service, their full-time staffing is down to 12,600 people from 16,000 in January 2025. In addition to having people pulled into the office of the secretary, they now need almost everything signed off by the secretary's office that they do. So it's created huge backlogs in things from simply purchasing items that they need to run parks to communicating with the public about what's happening in the constituent parks. So it's really started to degrade the functions of the bureaus in the Department of Interior.
One of the other reorganizations that we've heard about inside Interior is the firefighting and wildland fires function. Did that get rolled up in this broader efficiency and cost savings effort?
Yes, so that's an excellent question. So the Trump administration, and I don't have an exact answer to this except to say that the Trump administration is looking to merge, as I understand it, the firefighting functions of the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Interior. And what we're hearing from people involved in firefighting is that they are very concerned about the chaos that will create in what promises to be a very, very active fire season this year. Things are very dry out west. There's a lack of snow cover, and many of the administrative support functions that are used to support the firefighting efforts have been severely degraded, and many of the people have left. So once this fire season starts, there's significant concern that there will not be enough support to provide the resources necessary to fight these fires the way we should be able to fight them.
Interior is not the only federal agency that proposed significant restructuring, massive workforce relocations. We're hearing it from the Department of Agriculture, from other organizations that your organization stays in touch with. When you think about these kinds of proposals, and you've seen them come and go, what do agencies consistently underestimate when they think that a large-scale restructuring is just going to save money and make things better?
Yeah, so I think that is often used as a tool to justify reorganizations in government, but I would say that's often not the real reason. Here, we don't really know the real reasons of why they're doing this. We tend to think, as I've mentioned before, that it's to get people to leave. It's an effort to downsize the federal government and to give the secretaries of these agencies more control over the agencies. So the obstacles they run into when they do these reorganizations is oftentimes at a higher level, they don't understand the leadership. The new leadership doesn't understand the work that people actually do. And so they're moving things around on paper without recognizing the effects that may have in the communities throughout the country.
What do they also then not understand about the costs of reorganization inside the government?
So I think, we have a very conservative government that wants to downsize the federal government. And I think they can do that. Congress has provided them with the tools necessary to do that. And there are procedures that they need to follow that Congress has put into law. The Clinton administration downsized the federal government. It took them a few years to do that. They worked with Congress to do that. This administration could have done that also. And they could have done it in 2 or 3 years. And they could have, with Congress's support, achieved significant efficiencies from their perspective. But they haven't done that. They haven't sort of articulated a plan, looked at where they want to cut expenses, and worked with Congress to do that. They've gone off on their own. It's part of their effort to create trauma, to get people to leave the government, and to give the secretaries power, as much power as possible, irrespective of the law or the Constitution.
What is the next step in Pierre's investigation here of the Department of Interior?
So the Department of Interior, we're very concerned that Interior Secretary Doug Burgum is making the Department of the Interior an instrument of presidential power and using the Department of Interior to purvey sort of Trump's narcissism in our perspective. And he's working to integrate himself and ingratiate himself into the president's inner circle and stay there. And so we're looking at how the Department of Interior is spending its money, how it's treating its employees, and whether it's following the law and the Constitution, its leadership, as it's required to do.
Been speaking with Tim Whitehouse. He's the Executive Director of the Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate it.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Listen to the Federal Drive on your schedule. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.